My name is Tali. I had the immense pleasure of moving to Holit this recent August. I've had the chance of living most places around the world as part of diplomatic service positions. I lived in the States for a while and in France, and I went all over the globe. But the second we arrived in Holit, it felt like home. It felt like a family. It wasn't something you can quantify, but it was 2 months that felt like they were just right, which is why that day was as much of a shock as it could be. I have a 3-year-old daughter who um, was feeling just as happy living in the kibbutz. She just blended right in the second we got there. And we woke up that morning. It was Shabbat morning, 6:30, like Ariel said. We were all asleep in our master bedroom, hearing the siren going off. And we ran to the safety room, the mamad, with my daughter still asleep in my arms. And we started locking up, and that's when we started hearing that there were already missile fire to the center of Israel, Tel Aviv, which was very, very odd. We we understood this was going to be a long sit, so my husband left the safety room to gather some supplies and close everything up, the windows and the shutters and everything. Got us some candy and the iPad for my daughter. And we went back in that's when we started hearing automatic gunfire outside. And we immediately knew that those were not Israeli soldiers. Those were not the IDF, because we don't use the automatic function in our weapons. Usually IDF uses just single shots, even if it's repeated. And we also heard some single shots reacting to those automatic weapons, which we understood to be our um, react team in the kibbutz, what we call kitat konenut. Essentially, people who are who have weapons and are supposed to react whenever there's something um, safety, security related that they need to go and give the first be the first responders until the military comes to assist. So that was the sound of our, as far as I know today, the chief of the security in a kibbutz. His name was Avi, God rest his soul. And we heard his gun shots outside our room. We knew that the sound of the automatic weapons were the terrorists. We had no idea how many, how much, how wide scope everything was. That's when we started getting some messages from family living in center of Israel, along with more newsworthy intelligence and pictures of that were already circulating in the web of people gunned down in Sderot, which is a town about 60 kilometers to the north of us. And we knew that this was a very serious situation. So we started shutting down everything. As I said before, we closed everything up in the house, closed the safety room as far as we could. We closed the lights. We didn't have the air conditioning installed yet. Again, we were there only for 2 months, and we had our daughter watch YouTube on iPad to keep her quiet as best as we could. and it was very useful for a few hours until there was no more. We had no more videos saved on the iPad. And there was no internet service any start since 6 in the morning, and there was no self-service, nothing we could do to revive the iPad. We managed to get her to go to sleep for an hour, and when she woke up, she started to asking to go outside, leave the safety room. She was very bored. She was hungry. She was a normal 3-year-old, and eventually, I had that crazy thought in my head, which took me back to history class, that I need to put my hand over her mouth and get her to be quiet, because they were just outside our window and they were looking into, they were deciding which houses were inhabited and which ones were not, will be a waste of their time, I guess. And then I knew that the scope of the situation I was in was just like mothers in the Holocaust, who had to stifle the sound of their babies with their own hands to get them to be quiet, because the Nazis were outside looking for Jews. And I didn't have it in me to do that. So I told her in so many words. I explained to her his name is Thor. Told her, Thor, there are very bad people outside. They are looking for us. They want to hurt us, and we need to be quiet so that they would not know that we're here. And she understood right away somehow. She's very intelligent, but again, a 3-year-old. She was quiet for about 10 minutes. And then she started getting bored again. And we had to tell her again and again the whole day through, sometimes trying to keep her entertained quietly as we can. Again, we were sitting in the dark, in complete darkness, with no air, no nothing to get her occupied. But somehow she was able to be as quiet as possible. And we know now that the initial wave of terrorists, part of it, because they came into the kibbutz from several sides. A neighbor of mine went back today to gather some stuff, and he showed me that the fence behind my own house was completely wide open. They came in from that end, and my house is the one right up against the fence, overlooking Rafah. Great view, great sunsets, and another. But that's where they came in. I assume we know that they tried to break in. They tried to go through the electric shutters. They couldn't, because they are reinforced to withstand missile attack. We heard them trying to get in. We heard them firing on our windows, the safety room windows, which are also reinforced. They used the machine gun to fire at the windows, and they were. That was the most deafening sound. And I know now that they weren't actually firing at our specific window, because they must have not known that we were inside. We know that we were listening, like Ariel, to the community WhatsApp group, again, off and on, because we had no cell reception, no way of actually knowing what's going on outside. And every 30 minutes, we had our phones pressed up against the window to have it download a few messages to know what's going on, because we knew our neighbors are fighting for their lives. We knew they were going house to house, from the furthest parts of the kibbutz to us, and we could tell that they were coming back over. We could tell that they were outside, because we could hear talking outside the window. We could hear the gunfire going off outside the window, and We just didn't have anything else but sit there and trying to be the most nonchalant we can, all while tormenting our daughter to keep her quiet as much as we could. One of my thoughts was maybe we should get outside of the safety room and go up into the attic, which has no uh, significant access other than ceiling door, and but we just heard again that they were trying to break in, and we just decided to stay in. Fortunately, I guess, and that's it. We know that at some point we realized they were going into houses and murdering people. Whoever they could get into the safety room, those people are not with us anymore, unfortunately. And that's when we instructed my daughter to hide under the bed, and we told her that we're going to play hide and seek, and she's going to stay under the bed. If somebody comes in and mom and dad are forced to go away, she should stay there until it's very quiet outside. And she asked why. And I told her because of the bad people outside who are looking for us. If they find us, I want you to go under the bed. Um, which is a very testing day as a parent, to be forced to say stuff like that to your child, not knowing what would be the outcome, what toll it's going to take on them. Fortunately, we all three of us survived, but many of her own classmates were either murdered with their families or kidnapped to Gaza. We know now that there are at least two 30-year-old twin girls from Kibbutz Nir Oz from her kindergarten that were taken, and no idea what's going to be done about that. And like Ariel said, come night, soldiers arrived, were able to clear the houses one by one. We were one of the last ones, around 6:30, after 12 hours in the safety room. We gathered up some stuff. We got our two cats who were hiding under the bed outside the door, and we left for Kibbutz Gvulot. And immediately, right outside the door, the site of the kibbutz was all smoke and fire, burnt cars. The smell of gunpowder in the air was very, very strong. And I had my daughter close her eyes, and we managed to get outside of the kibbutz and drive towards Gvulot, and my husband took a wrong turn and continued straight forward, which is when we came across so many more sites. I can safely say I will not be forgetting those ever. Sight of a tank, an Israeli tank, engulfed in flames, and bodies of soldiers lie against the road. And we got Gvulot safely then, and we realized that sometime again during that day they must have siphoned the fuel from our vehicles, probably to use to burn down the houses. And we managed to get there just using fumes. And since then, and up until today, we are all refugees here in Kibbutz and Gedi. And my daughter, despite only being a resident of Holit for 2 months, is asking every single day, every single hour, when are we going home? When are we going back to kindergarten? Doesn't matter how many activities they have here, how many bouncy houses they've been brought here for the kids. No matter how many clowns and how many toys and how many donations they got to keep them happy, she still wants to know when we're going home, and when she gets to go back to her friends. I can't bring myself, obviously, to tell her that it's not going to happen ever again to go back to that kindergarten, to go back to those friends, because they're not there anymore.